Hierdie sigte, Voegwoorde, is so verwarrend. Daar is nie veel inligting daaroor nie, maar ons sal probeer om die grootste inligting daar te vind, soos wat ons kan. Laat ons begin en ons navorsing doen. Hoeveel groepe is daar van voegwoorde? Afripedia, lees van voegwoordegroepe. Ek dink dat dis is die regte een. Voegwoorde are words that join two full sentences together. There are 3 different groups in voegwoorde, as well as 2 different smaller groups. Group 1. The voegwoorde in this group are in, maar, want, of, and doch. To add in the conjunction, take away the full stop and put the conjunctions in between the 2 words without changing anything else. Don't forget to add a comma before maar, want, and doch. Let's look at an example to better understand. We're given the sentences die rok is baie mooi and dit is baie kort. We're given the voegwoord maar to join them. Because we know maar is a groep 1 voegwoord, all we do is replace the full stop with the word maar, as well as adding a comma before the maar. So to summarize, the sentence structure for groep 1 is sentence 1, sometimes a comma, voegwoord, and then sentence 2. How easy was that? Now we understand groep 1. Let's move on to groep 2. The voegwoorde in this group are dus, daarom, dan, daarna, al, anders, and the rest of the die-woorde, except doch and dat. Same as in groep 1, to add the conjunction, you replace the full stop with your voegwoord. The only difference now is instead of leaving the rest of the sentence the same, you bring the verb, the werkwoord, of the second sentence to the position after the conjunction, the werkwoord. Don't forget, for all of the voegwoorde in groep 2, except al, dan, and to, you put a semicolon before. Let's take a look at some examples to see how this rule plays out. If we're given the sentences, ek sal na die swembad gaan, and ek sal swem, and the voegwoord daarna to join them together. Because this is voegwoorde, we know to replace the full stop with the voegwoord regardless of what group it is. However, that's not all. We know now with groep 2 that we have to identify the verb of the second sentence in order for this to be correct. Note that there are 2 verbs in this second sentence, sal and swem. Because sal is in our verb 1 position, werkwoord in, we use sal to apply to this rule. So therefore, we bring the sal to the position after the voegwoord and add a semicolon where there used to be a full stop. Unfortunately, there isn't a semicolon in this example, but there's supposed to be. The rest of the sentence stays the same, so it reads, ek sal na die swembad gaan, daarna sal ek swem. So to summarize, the sentence structure for groep 2 is sentence 1, sometimes a semicolon, the voegwoord, the verb from the sentence 2, and then the rest of the second sentence. Great, now we understand groep 2. It's time to look at our third and final group, groep 3. Our voegwoorde in groep 3 are all the dat words, so dat, nadat, sodat, omdat, and then as, aangesien, terwijl, and alhoewel. Like with the previous groups, to add in the conjunction, you replace the full stop with the voegwoord. But that's not all you do. You identify the werkwoord, the verb, in the second sentence and move it to the end. There are a few things to keep in mind here. The first is that if your second sentence contains a hoofdwerkwoord, like moet, kan, or any of those, you move the hoofdwerkwoord to the position before the final verb. The second thing to remember is that nie always goes at the end of the sentence, no matter what. Let's take a look at some examples. In this example, we're given the sentences die meisie kan sing and sy gaan lesse toe. The word omdat is given to join them. Like we've done before, we replace the full stop with the omdat. We identify the verb in the second sentence, which is gaan, and move it to the end. So the sentence reads, die meisie kan sing, omdat sy lesse toe gaan. To summarize, the order for group 3 goes as follows. Sentence 1, conjunction. Sentence 2, and then the first verb from sentence 2 at the end. Now we understand the first 3 groups. Weet dat ons al die belangrikste simptome uitgevind het en kyk na die kleineres. Wat is die kleine simptome van voegwoorde? Afrikapedia, die 2 kleine simptome. Ek dink dat dis is die regte een. There are 2 little additional rules for voegwoorde. Rule 1. When a sentence starts with a voegwoord. This specifically applies to groep 3. And the second rule. rules for noch and noch, of and zoveel as. Let's take a look at the first rule. When a sentence starts with a Voegwoorde. This really applies only to groep 3, except for al in groep 2. Al is the only word in groep 2 that you can use to start off a sentence. You start off with your Voegwoorde, then you identify the verbs in the first and second sentence. You bring the verb in the first sentence to the position after the Voegwoorde, and you bring the verb in the second sentence to the beginning of the second sentence. You replace the full stop with a comma to join the two sentences. This is all quite confusing, so let's look at an example. Given the sentences die tuin is baie lelik, die voeltjies sing so vrolik, and the word al to join them together. You place al at the beginning of the first sentence and identify the two verbs. Is the verb from the first sentence, and sung is the verb from the second sentence. You put us after the Voegwoorde at the beginning, and you put sung at the beginning of the second sentence. You replace the full stop with a comma to join them, so your final sentence reads, Al is die tuin baie lelik, sing die voeltjies so vrolik. Now that we understand this rule in groep 2, we should look at it in groep 3. You start the sentence with the conjunction word, the Voegwoorde. Then you identify the werkwoord, the verb, in the first sentence and move it to the end of the first sentence. You then join the two sentences by replacing the full stop with the comma. Finally, you identify the verb in the second sentence and bring that to the beginning of the second sentence, after the comma. Let's take a look at some examples. So in this example, we're given the sentences ek studeer hard and ek kry goeie punte. We're given the joining word us, and we're told to put us at the beginning of the sentence. Once we've put us at the beginning of the sentence, we identify the verb in both of the sentences. Studeer is the verb of the first sentence, so we move that to the end of the first sentence. We replace the full stop with a comma, and move the verb of the second sentence, kry, to the beginning of the second sentence. The comma is in between the two verbs. So the final sentence reads, As ek hard studeer, kry ek goeie punte. Now let's look at the second small rule. This rule is for noch, of, and zoveel as. These words are kind of in a group of their own because they don't really fit into any of the first three groups. Now it looks a little confusing, but I promise it'll make more sense when we go over the example. So the first thing you do is identify the parts of the two sentences that are identical. Remove those parts and put them on the side. You then put the first part of the Voegwoorde, either the first noch, the first of, or the zoveel, in front of the first word, and the second one in front of the second word. You then put the rest of the sentence back at the end, the part that you removed originally. To make this rule a little more understandable, let's take a look at our final example of the day. We're given the sentences, Coke is nie gesond nie, Fanta is nie gesond nie, and we're supposed to join them with noch and noch. Now, the first thing we do is identify which parts of the sentences are the same, and it's pretty easy to see. The is nie gesond nie is repeated in both of the sentences. So we remove that. Coke and Fanta are the two words that are left, so we put a noch in between. Noch Coke, noch Fanta. We then put the rest of the sentence that we'd removed back at the end. Is nie gesond nie. Now, because it's noch and noch, and the sentences are negative, we can't have a triple negative, so we take out the first nie. Aside from the extra rule with the negative, the same thing applies to of, and zoveel as. Isn't that great? Now you know Voegwoorde. Wonderlik. Nou dat ons klaar is, kan ons oorgaan na deel 2, die navorsing.